a shaking time. Hope you've shaken up all your expectations. I hope you're ready to leave Atlanta or wherever you are living and are ready to bring a new insight about social business to your work lives and to your daily lives, because you're doing amazing work. And all of this is going to be showing up in ways that we can't even imagine today in all kinds of businesses and all kinds of fields. So thank you all for coming. We will have, after Baratunde, we will have a special closing reception. I'm breathless. On the 27th floor at altitude. And we're going to give you yet more great Southern food and libations before you leave Social Shakeup, so I hope you'll join us there. We're just shaking with pleasure at the fact that Baratunde Thurston's come down from New York to talk to you today. Baratunde is probably well known to any of you who, like me, watches Bill Maher, but also he appears regularly in social media. Certainly he's one of the biggest stars in social media, as well as other more traditional forms. He is the CEO and founder of Cultivated Wit, which is a company that describes itself as a group of creative conspirators. I love that. He is also the author, as people know from the morning session, of How to Be Black, which is something I'm going to try to learn. I really don't think I do a good enough job at it. And then he's probably also, many of you know, was for many years the digital director for The Onion, one of my favorite sources of cultivated wit. Please welcome to the stage Baratunde Thurston.
Can we please give a very, very warm round of applause for Robin? Best CEO on the East Coast. I've been to a lot of conferences. I haven't seen anybody just cut loose like that before the cocktail hour. That was really good. I don't know what's gonna happen to you on the 27th floor, but she's doing good. There was a very brief image of me up there from our sketch artist, and while Robin was introduced, this one, I look really sad in this picture. Just like I had a couple beers, and I'm just waiting for things to happen. So as the time progresses, we can switch back to this one. We can fill that up with some more content. I'm going to do the following thing. All right, it is 4:40. I would like to not talk at you for more than 35 minutes, and then open it up, and we can go back and forth. We can have fisticuffs. We can dance some more. Or we can start drinking early, whatever works for you people. And I'm going to start with some background, some lessons, and then showcase a few examples that I think are worth attention in terms of how to bring fun and personality to this idea of social business and social media. But first, let me rewind a bit. I can't talk about my own experience without rewinding to before I could have an experience, and that would be as far as known family, my great-grandfather. This is an old newspaper clipping, Benjamin Lonesome. He was born in 1870, right at the edge of slavery in Caroline County, Virginia, and he worked for the government. He had a couple of kids and a couple of daughters, one of whom is pictured here with President Jimmy Carter. Now, my great-grandfather, I didn't know him at all. My mom was a big fan of his. She always said he taught himself to read. And that was such a huge lore in the family. Like, how do you even do that? When your parents tell you to look up a word in a dictionary, you don't know how to spell it. Like, you're caught in this infinite loop of parental nonsense. I don't know how do you teach yourself to read. No offense to the parents in the room, but it's nonsense. This photo emerged much after my grandmother's life, and actually after my mother's life. My sister and I were going through my mother's belongings, and we found this image in my mom's files of our grandmother with President Jimmy Carter. And no one had ever talked about this. Right? That's a weird family secret to keep. Normally it's something embarrassing, like one leg's longer than the other, or they voted for the wrong candidate. This was a testament to the terrible relationship my mom had with her mother, but my grandmother was the first black employee at the U.S. Supreme Court building, which we found out way, way later. Basically a secretary within that office, and that's a little bit of history. My mom was just really cute. She's a really cute little girl. At age 4, you can see where I get it from. Cheeks, especially, they've slimmed down a little bit, but I've added more beard to the cheek to keep that roundness. And her mother was very proud, to ship her off, actually, to boarding school, which is not a common thing in 1948. My mom went to this boarding school in rural Pennsylvania, and the whole family's been growing up in D.C. for a very long time. Take this little girl out of the city and send her off to the country. And our mother didn't like it. She didn't like it at all. And the reason that my sister and I know that she didn't like it is because she wrote letters that we found basically saying, I don't like it. Here's an example letter. Dear Mother, I am having fun, but I do not like it here. Subtext revealed. I am mad at you. So that was like a little hint that she wasn't happy. Please send me some cookies and a Sparkle Plenty doll. They can have dolls here. Please send it because I do not have anything to play with. Yours truly, Arnita. And it's very sad. It's very sad letters. It's some pretty crappy handwriting. But she's 8, cut my mom some slack. Penmanship would come later. In the lower left corner, you see this note, this word that simply says, over. And when you turn the letter over, you find attached to this letter another letter, which says, if your little girl is dissatisfied, we'd be glad to have her bed for children who are anxious to come. Signed, Sister. And this is amazing. This is a precursor to the NSA wiretapping program circa 1948. Data mining operation, just the beta, early testing. Little black girl, see, she wanted cookies, and that's a threat. To America, she might want to vote next, equal pay for equal work. Nonsense. You got to nip that in the bud. No cookies for the kid. So we've tried to hold true to that. So that's my mom. She would emerge out of that phase. She is pictured here with a group of friends in a very political march. That's something known as the African Liberation Day Parade in the late 1960s down 16th Street in D.C., for those who might be familiar. And there she is right in the middle. Focused not forward, but to the side for the camera. Because maybe she'll meet you someday in a moment like this. And the trick is when you emerge into a household where this is the backstory, right? Childhood is different. Literature is different. Books are different. The first book I honestly remember reading as a kid was a little light fare here called This is Apartheid. A pictorial introduction. That really can mess with your head when you're 8 years old and still learning what numbers are. It's very, very dramatic. But since then, the story gets more interesting. My father was not around during this period. He was actually killed when I was very young, so my mom raised me and my sister. Here's a college graduation shot from Harvard University. There was a period after I graduated where I worked in corporate strategy consulting, and that's represented by this pitch black slide here. But then I emerged and found the lights again, moved to New York City, which is its own form of darkness, but also light, and stumbled into America's finest news source, where I ran digital and political coverage. And since leaving The Onion about 2 years ago, started this entity known as Cultivated Wit, whose goal is to bridge design, technology, and humor to tell stories, create community, and make the world a more fun place. The name comes from this old poet named Horace, who had some really nice things to say about the power of wit when it comes to contentious and complex issues, and that's a lot of the spirit of our organization comes out of that. So let me dive into some of the meat, hopefully a few provocative, interesting, non-repetitive things, probably some repetition. Got a lot of really smart people here. Then we can get even more interesting in the questions. Some lesson-type things. I remember once addressing a group talking about innovation and social media and social business, and someone said to me, it was a really amazing question. They said, hey, Baratunde, I heard video is going to be big next year. What should my company do in video? And I thought about it, and something really struck me as weird about the question. I feel like moving images have been popular since time immemorial, and there is no like year of video. I'm very skeptical of these grandiose statements. Oh, next year, you know it's gonna be hot? Text. Text is gonna be massive next year. We're gonna really double down on letters interpreted, through a cognitive function. It's like, no, we gotta get beyond the sort of the fadness. And when thinking about the idea of adding personality and humor, it doesn't start with the joke. It actually starts with the self. And really, a headline has been a great way to think about it. And having a sense of character. Who is this company that you are, this product that you're representing, you as a person, if it's just you. And I take as a great lesson The Onion as a strong example of this. Before I worked there, I didn't really understand who The Onion was. I thought I knew what it was. But who The Onion is actually a person. There's this invented character, T. Hermann Zwiebel, who was an Austrian, Prussian, actually tuber farmer, who came to the United States and only understood 2 words of English, the and onion, and saw a great opportunity to monetize through publicity news, quote unquote news, and thus began the fake history of The Onion. It's a very condescending, arrogant, all-knowing point of view. And when people would sometimes suggest, like, oh, this would be great, this article would be great for The Onion, it's like, no, it wouldn't, because it actually doesn't match that identity, it doesn't match that voice. It's just absurd, or it's just embarrassing, or it's politically untenable, but it doesn't come from this source of arrogant, condescending, all-knowing media. You paste that on and you get everything. The motto of The Onion is Tu stultus est, Latin for you are dumb. That's all you really need to know about the character of The Onion. Everybody there thinks you're stupid. This is a strong headline which clearly defined so much of the past 6 years. No matter who you voted for, this is true. This is true. This is just the worst job in the world. Not just the nation, it's understated, if anything. And then The Onion has grown to a whole new area, clickhole, which is attempting to parody the unparodyable BuzzFeed and Upworthy and Upfeed and Buzzworthy in a satirical version of listicles and rhetorical questions built into headlines that don't actually deliver information, but add a question mark so you click to get the answer. So who are you? That's the thing that actually matters. If it's one of those moments where you're taking a lecture and someone says, if you remember one thing, this is it. Just who are you? That's all that matters. Everything else derives from this answer. The other has to do with listening. We have a lot of tools to promote, a lot of tools to shout, and the value of actually shutting up and paying attention. I'm still impressed with the great power of our networked world to build empathy, to allow us to tune in to the experiences of other people, whether it's politically, whether it's just for fun, whether it's for profit. And the idea of being quiet every once in a while and taking a listen to the user, to the competitor, to the former customer can be very, very interesting. This is a dramatic example of that. Taking another page from The Onion, they ran this satirical story many years ago about Planned Parenthood opening an abortion-plex for $8 billion, which should clearly have not been true. A member of Congress interpreted it as true and pasted it to his Facebook. Now, we shouldn't be surprised because I said a member of Congress when I prefaced that. So I think Ebola is probably more highly rated nowadays. But there was some obvious flash from this event. The less obvious one was what fans of The Onion did with this moment. And it was really indicative of a lot that we've seen happening since then, of people picking up and running with something, extending your brand, your editorial, your IP. Someone made an abortionplex within Yelp and took their cues from the story, but then hundreds of other people added more reviews on top, that they weren't paid, they weren't employees or freelance staffers for The Onion. They got no marching orders. They merely understood the voice and carried it forward in a way that didn't require any sort of sanction. So lots and lots of just ridiculous things. I'm not going to spend, it's horrible. It's just, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad person. Let's switch gears. Let's, oh wow, okay, if I get in trouble, this is Lady in the Glasses at table 4 told me to go back, go back, go back. Yep, there you go. Okay. I'll just wait while you read the fine print. Good, good. This has never happened before. This is really, you guys like attention to detail. You lawyers, what's going on? Okay, glad I didn't fill it with gibberish. It's legitimate. This book that I wrote was another example with a very subtle headline attached to it that would just try to kind of get a reaction from people. But again, that's part of the talking. The shutting up and listening was, I couldn't anticipate everything that would happen with this title. I had hopes and dreams for what would happen with this book and who it would connect to and how many units would be sold. And I had built a 5-page marketing plan and probably executed on like 60% of it. But I didn't see this thing coming, which was the hashtaggery around the book, not textually, but visually. Instagram is just the capital of how to be black as far as the response to this book in the digital public space. People love taking pictures of other people with how to be black in public. It doesn't matter if it's a black person brushing up on her skills, right? Proudly posing with a friend, or if it's a white person desperate to get a little closer to blackness. Hoping against hope that a printed book would accomplish that. Or if it's a heavy dose of shade and side-eye thrown that away at your white friend. So many moments that go beyond the human, right? That go beyond our galaxy, even. I staged none of this. I didn't even hope for this. I didn't anticipate this. And I'm supposed to be a creative digital thinker. And like, you can't know every eventuality, but if you're listening, you can benefit, at a minimum, enjoy, and try to learn something from it. So shutting up and listening is part of it. I did a thing when I wrote the book. Partly, I shared that screen of mine, my writing screen, with the public for certain hours during the close of the writing process. And it came with the chat room, the software that I used. So people were chatting back and forth to each other, and I grabbed those logs later and pulled a few highlighted comments from those chats. How self-obsessed does one have to be to set something like this up? Very is the answer. I'm surprised to see Baratunde use semicolons. Obviously, my record has shown I've always been against the semicolon. Who isn't? And then this gem of internet text, which is the best thing that's ever been written. Best thing ever. I would just like to stop here if I could, because it's the best thing ever. Yeah, it's just great. My girlfriend is Chinese and I'm half Jamaican. What's the other half? Regular black. I still, even having this has been in my mind for so long, I should launch a diet black product. Like I should productize this, a black zero, a gluten-free black, just something to keep this going. I think our kids might end up Dominican or something. That's just great. So look, without prompting or permission, people create relevant stories, know them, be aware of them. We have so many tools that are probably on display here to help you know that. At the heart of it is play and the idea of not just the business objectives and the standards and practices group and the profit on this and that thing. It's the role of fun in all this, because that's a big expression of what it is to be human. We saw a major example of a very, very stiff government policy, thousands of pages of legislative text rolled out in part through Funny or Die. When the President of the United States sits down with a comedic actor and banters back and forth, something is shifted in the zeitgeist a bit. And that was a great moment, and it was an effective moment for them by their own numbers. I don't have them off the top of my head, but much has been written about the increased awareness, the signups, the enrollments in the exchanges because of this moment, because someone in a very serious role decided to play. Hipmunk. Clap if you know what Hipmunk is. Right. It's yet another travel search service. And you can sort by price. You can sort by costs. And those are pretty much the switches we have on most travel search sites. they added another one. They added agony. And this is a composite score that takes into account delay time, number of legs, the type of plane you're on, like a whole mix of stuff, and it's all delivered by an adorable chipmunk, which that's just great. That makes one of the driest, most kind of commodity type businesses. Oh, low prices, who doesn't have that? And add some personality and some flair to it. You've got, in our company, we do an event series called Comedy Hack Day. And we've taken the idea of a hackathon where developers come together to code over a weekend, and we've added more fun to that. We've added developers, we've added designers. Their goal is to produce something funny, something fun. And some examples of what people have made. Timesify won our most recent event. It allows you to read salacious news at your office, like Gawker or TMZ, and then press a button and magically make that garbage look like the New York Times. And people think you're reading the New York Times. They basically stole the whole style. They get content from the Times. The ads, when you click them, become photos from the original slideshow over at TMZ.com. So you don't have to be ashamed of yourself anymore. And then Magic Story Maker. Clap if you have children. Smattering. So you are probably well acquainted with the idea. I'd even say the fact that children are pretty useless. And they take a lot of resources, right? They take a lot of resources, and that's part of the deal. They look like you, so you have a vested interest. Evolution is a very powerful motivator. And the thing about kids and reading is, if you're around that age of 2, they want to read the same thing over and over and over again. And when you, as a parent or an aunt or a friend of the family, are tasked with that, you're getting dumber and dumber and dumber every time you read that same story. Opportunity cost, right? You're not learning about what's going on with the NFL. You're not getting your stock quotes. You're not finding out about the iPhone 7. So this app is an iPad app which lets you choose the news stories you want to read, and they make them look like the children's story your kid wants to experience. And it's got animation in it, and there's a little playful monkey that pops up. It's a win-win-win. I don't even know how many wins there are in this. It's hard to categorize. It's infinite win attached to this app, and a few other things that have been made. Flosser was a social network for flossing. Fitbit yelled at you for not exercising. And plugged into your Fitbit, but just had more attitude, more personality. Like an algorithm is cold. An angry drill sergeant, that's something else to get you to do those crunches. And I want to show you some examples of interactions online. So Google Voice does this thing that I'm still shocked by. When you're sending a text message through their soon-to-be defunct, I'm sure, mobile service, as you're typing, this little area here shows a countdown of how many characters you have left. Now I'm in the second message. Oh, look at that. All kinds of fun notifications. This is going to be great. I'm professional. Yes. Oh, wow. I've done this before. This is just marvelous. Thank you so much. Plugin I just added 2 days before talking. What happens when you get to the third message, you expect a certain thing, and another thing happens. That's beautiful to me. That's really, really, really beautiful. There's a new, relatively new editorial operation out in the world called Fox ADHD. They're essentially a form similar to Adult Swim, but owned by Fox. And they're out in Los Angeles. And one of the most innovative things they do, they make great cartoons. You should watch the cartoons. They're online and on TV, probably on Fox, I'm guessing. But the thing that's more interesting socially, they have just blown out their presence on Tumblr, on Instagram, on Twitter, by GIFing the news. Every day they have a GIF newsroom take headlines, last month was the warmest on record in August, and turn that into an animated GIF. Princess Peach's underwear is now protected from your gaze. There's some Rihanna news, pulling her song from an NFL broadcast, George Clooney and his hot dog. This thing with Obama and Ebola, like they make it fun to know what, this is my primary source of news. And that may say something about me, that I'm wise and sage. No, but I think there's something really nice about the injection of fun, the remixing of an established thing with a very clear voice. There's clearly a tone to all these things, even as they have different artists do them. They are running out, oh, this is a great one. Ryan Gosling had a baby, I maybe broke some of your hearts. So yeah, Fox AD HD. And I want to show you the latest thing that our company has been working on. We'll do this only selectively. It's basically the one example of cultivated wit work I want to show you. But we do run campaigns for certain clients, and we'll do a social media campaign, or we'll build an animated video, or we'll do some identity and branding, etc. And we got approached by an effort that wants to recruit more teachers in the US, more science, tech, engineering, and math teachers. And teacher recruitment has generally been a very straightforward ask. You should help your country, you can affect the life of a young person. It's very earnest. And there's a lot of great resources out there that do that already, so we wanted to do it a whole different way. We're targeting people who are in college, who are majoring in science, tech, engineering, and math-related subjects, or who've recently graduated and might be open to the idea. So this is how we kicked it off just yesterday. This is hot off the digital presses with a music video.
Have a great first day. Huh?
All right, class. I'm Miss Helix. Who's feeling more excited than a lit up photosensitive retinal ganglion cell? My phone just died. Okay. What do you want from me? You want freaky fish?
Ew.
Or Tesla coils? Or heck, you want my left arm? Here. I'm sorry. Did I blow your mind a little bit? Well, I'm just warming up. Hey! Bionic technology fits like a glove, helps people to do what they love. Soon we'll grow organs. You need a liver? Made in a lab, then have it delivered. Genetic engineering will fight disease, giving hope and strength to the old and weary. You could be the person that ends human aging. Whoa. I blow minds, change the future of humankind. I blow minds, next generation of Einstein. Educators hear my cry, teachers behind each Nobel Prize. Mind blown minds, yeah. I blow minds. Selfies, Snapchats, that's just the start. One day, everything will be smart. Driverless cars, chauffeured like Queen Bey. And cyborg dogs that will form your play. From there, who knows? Friends made a code. What kind of bestie would you download? The robots you built
In the future.
they may not seem like machines at all. I blow minds, change the future of humankind. I blow minds, person of the year, it's my time. Educators hear my cry. I build a bot that gives high fives. Mind blown minds, yeah. I blow minds. I don't preach STEM for the dollar signs. I shape the future by expanding minds. Maybe you'll design shuttles for vacation. You'll build Earthbound and Disney Space Station. You'll find an energy source that's surprising. You'll pull the cyborg dark uprising.
I'm gonna stop it there with the cow shitting into the bucket, making energy. I think that's a really good segue. And you can play the rest of it. It's a 3-minute thing. I don't want to just play the whole thing right in front of you, but I wanted to show you this other interaction. So that's, media, great, okay, get it. Then we decided to do an internet quiz, which is a popular form of media these days. So let's take this 100% unbiased career quiz. What's a good first question for a life-changing internet quiz? Would you consider yourself a patient person? I did, just before this happened. And you literally can't push the button. All right, with somebody on the internet who's patient, find us and ask you, 16 thinly veiled introverts will trust you to know yourself. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I'm guessing that one. What's the reason for your current career track? Money, 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 obviously. Here's another site for when you're done with this one, and that takes you to Goldman Sachs. What's your opinion of bioluminescence? That would be a great band name. So that continues. People can share their results. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. And we're connecting people to partners to actually become teachers, kind of in this third layer. So the funnel of fun is how we've thought about it. So as you get a little deeper, you get more serious and intense, a lot of fun language, and then a ton of fun, animated, socially shareable gift things that allow people to just take a piece of this campaign and share it out in a different way. All right, so maybe you're an image person, maybe you're a quiz person, maybe you like YouTube animated videos. There's kind of something available for everyone, and bringing that level of fun and interaction and sort of explosive mind-blowingness to the Twitter account, to the Tumblr account, to the Facebook group that are aligned with these, in voice, allowing other people to add to the narrative as well, and just hopefully a heck of a lot of fun. Jane Goodall had a good teacher, so should you. And this coding thing is very, very sad. So that is the interlude for the internet. I want to come back. There's a really awesome quote, which I took to apply to technology, but I think it can apply to business in general. There's nothing like a gleam of humor to reassure you that a fellow human is ticking inside of a strange face. And I think that applies to a lot of strange faces in our world, whether it's a glowing rectangle that we're attached to constantly, or business that we relate to, or political establishment. And then the fourth thing, stay classy. I did a thing that I'm very, very proud of. I'm fond of math, clearly. Ran the STEM teacher recruitment campaign. Love black people, clearly. Wrote a book called How to Be Black. So I decided to count black people. And I called it Negro spotting, and I did it at the Republican National Convention. An unconventional place to count black people. Turns out the numbers don't get very high in that situation. And I was having a grand old time day after day. I was on the ground. I was physically there. I would spot a black person, verify their blackness just with my own internal blacked out algorithm, and then add them to the count. And then report my findings intermittently on the hashtag to Twitter. So something interesting happened maybe the third day. I was approached by a group, maybe 3 or 4 black dudes about my age, and they said, "Yo, are you that brother counting the black Republicans?" And there was just this pause, this wait to the moment where I was like, I don't think they're amused. I think this might become a situation. I think I wish I had my sneakers on right now. And it's one of those things, you talk a lot of shit on the internet and then you face the consequences in real life. This was me, chickens coming home to roost. And I said, yeah, I did it. And they erupted laughing. They thought it was a great idea. They were legitimately black Republicans, which most of the black people I counted weren't. They were like members of the military, or Joe Johnson from NBC, or Soledad O'Brien. But some people weren't Soledad O'Brien, and these guys weren't. And we ended up in a great discussion. One of those people, his name's Paris Denard. He ran AFAM outreach for George W. Bush and for the McCain campaign. And we, on the spot, dropped a 20-minute podcast of me talking to him, clearly coming from different political angles and some shared experience. And I was so curious because I never get to relate to people like him. I live in Fort Greene in Brooklyn. That you have to import a black Republican to my zip code. And their fees are very high. So I didn't really have a budget. But this moment of ridiculousness became, out of play, a moment of actually very good idea exchange. I had a similar moment. I recommend everybody read this article that Nick Bilton in the New York Times wrote, talking about you can't win a social media fight, and sometimes you may end up in one personally or as your company, but there are ways to engage with the fury of another person, and it's not about winning, but I think there is an opportunity to expand understanding, and playfulness can be a really, really great way to do that. Another response I got to Negro spotting, there's a woman named Michelle Malkin. Clap if you know who Michelle Malkin is. Great. Most of you don't, which is fortunate for you. But she's a very, regardless of political side, she's kind of a nasty personality who happens to come from the very, very far right. And she sicked her Twitter people on me. So I started getting all kinds of hate tweets, truly hateful, N-word, this and that, and this is gonna happen to you. And I'm not used to that. I'm a nice person. I smile a lot, And I decided to respond instead of adding to the negativity. I'm like, how do you play this classy? So I proposed gay marriage to the clearly frustrated men who were engaging with me in a horrible way. I'd send them cat videos as a response. Amplify the love. And there's people don't know what to do. If somebody says fuck you, I hope you die, and then you respond with like nyan cat, like it throws them off. It really throws them off. It's jujitsu, you know, it's social media jujitsu. So use that. And then lastly on the formal program, I wanted to highlight, because I did promise in the text for this that there would be some practical tool explained. There are three things I want to point out to you, and it's coincidentally, one is definitely in the room. There's a company called Unmetric, and full disclosure, I'm an advisor to them, so add a little salt to this. But here's what I like about them. It goes back to that idea of listening. You know, these guys provide a level of social media analysis and intelligence that lets you look at how content performs, that lets you look at how your own brand is performing or your competitive segment, or how a campaign across channels performs. It's the listening, though. There's just so much information and data and people throwing so much spaghetti at the wall. Why not see which of those lands into a delicious dish? I ran that metaphor into the ground. But anyway, Unmetric, check them out. Another is Attentively, whose CEO actually lives here in Atlanta. I have no interest in the company. A friend did help start it. So there's my disclosure statement. And they take a mailing list and give you insight into what your community is already up to. You can kind of get trending topics from within that. Some of you may be building very similar things, already use them. But again, I want to focus on this idea of listening. And then the last has to do with targeting. It's called Simplest. And they, again, friend of a founder, so disclosure explained there, or kind of opened up. They allow you to find expertise and targeted people. I've used it so much for like potential hires. Basically, you know, you plug in your social networks and you search them. You know, search that profile. And LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter are the most useful ones. And then you can have anyone on your team run that same list. So we defined a list of STEM educators that I was already connected to who might be down with our campaign, and then ran it across my company and got more people already running that same query, sort of mirroring it. Using social data in a different way to build cohorts and to find shared interest groups. So those are my plugs for businesses that are not mine. And that takes me to my closing, clearly scientifically sound argument that in the future, we're all Dominican. And now let's just smoothly go right into things you want to know that I've talked about, things I avoided because I hoped you wouldn't bring them up, but now you want to. Oh yes, you're the one who wants to read more of those abortionplex comments. And give it up for Robin, who's got a microphone. Thank you so much.
This really resonates with everything we've been talking about.
Good.
It's just perfect.
So I'm not undermining everything that happened here over the past 48 hours.
No, not at all. Not at all. I know people are going to have tons of questions, so let me get mine in first.
Oh, CEO's prerogative.
Yeah, so cultural differences when it comes to humor. My husband teaches humor to writers, actually.
He teaches humor to writers.
He has a whole thing called What's Funny. And
I want to meet this man.
One of his classic stories, he's also a Francophile, and he says that he actually sat in a movie, because most French movies are not dubbed. They use subtitles, right? So the subtitle was, it's a cowboy movie.
Yeah.
Cowboy comes into the bar, howdy partner, subtitle, enchanté. The cowboy owns, I'd like a shot of whiskey. On aperitif, s'il vous plaît, you know?
Yeah.
So cultural differences, are they inherently funny, or do you have to be careful how you navigate that?
So I think there's actually two things happening in your question. One is the translation of humor. Do you have access to humor that isn't from your own culture? The other is the hilarity of mistranslated humor, which is its own thing. That's, you know, take Google Translate, run it on the English page to Japanese, to English to Japanese, back to English. Magic. That's tell your husband to put that in his class.
I will. Thank you.
Boom. Bonus round. So, yeah, there are many universal experiences that transcend culture.
Right.
And I think
Chipmunks
transcend culture. Though actually, there's this. I saw a talk some years ago about, you know, our affinity for cats, and just we've kind of put cat humor on the internet. But I believe it was Uganda. I'm not 100% sure. Chickens. Right? The chicken is their cat.
Okay.
And once you know that, it unlocks the Ugandan people. Basically, it's like a little key ring, right? It's like a decoder ring for Ugandan culture. I may be oversimplifying a bit, but I think there's and chance and opportunity to seek the common across experience because we've got parents and children and we need food, etc. And there's some caution to be added when attempting to sort of bum rush or blaze into a culture that isn't the one you've been immersed in.
Right.
Because things that pop out of context can invite a lot of fury unintentionally.
Yeah, like giraffes in Ghana, right? I mean,
Right, like if you pick the wrong animal, and certainly the Onions found itself in hot water on occasion, doing things like that. We're like, oh, we're talking to our Onion people, and now we're in a much more open, transparent social world,
right.
And you're kind of invading somebody else's experience, in terms of the way Twitter works. Like, it just pops into your face. I didn't ask for this. I wasn't in your territory. So there's a lot to be cautious about. But I think the enjoyment that I find in it is like, what are those common pieces that will connect us?
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, it's your chance. We have
Definitely her, yeah.
Melinda.
So fast.
Her first social shakeup.
So Baratunde, you've
Yes,
got a
ma'am.
great sense of humor. What happens when the world just gets you down? It can't always be
Great question.
fun and light. So what's your process for digging out of that hole?
Sorry.
You're not getting my Bud Light, man.
I didn't expect this question. I sweat. I do a lot of push-ups. I ride my bike really hard. I maybe go to a yoga class. Sometimes I am a type of comedic person that's not 100% comedian. I'm this hybrid where a lot of my humor comes out of the political, and I've been a door-knocking advocate, and I've been a fundraising, activist, and I don't ever leave that fully behind. So, and I think I'm just an empathetic human being. I have a soul, right? I have a heart. Even comedians who are 100% feel things because the world can be very depressing and dark, individually or more widespread. So in those moments, sometimes I actually have a go-to video that just cheers me up. I'm not kidding. Let's go. So I just watched some of these Grover Waiter sketches from Sesame Street.
streaming.
We're not going to support the ad model right now. No offense to people buying ads on YouTube, but that undermines my point. I do have some funny things that I go to, and Grover being a waiter on Sesame Street just reminds me that it's going to be okay. And I think maybe because I love Sesame Street as a kid, sometimes I will cry if the thing calls for it. I'm not always up in mood. And then I try to think about, is there a unique way from a point of view of humor that I can spin this? That I can translate this culturally from pure dark or pure rage, which is often my case, or pure indignation, into something else as a cathartic act for me, and sometimes it may affect other people. Congress shut down a year ago. That was a dark moment, sort of constitutionally speaking, for the country, and we sat around the table, virtual table at Cultivated Wit, and we're like, yo, what can we do about this? And so we got this domain name, fuckyoucongress.com. And it was magically available. I was so shocked that no one had bought this in the 1800s. And we literally processed. We took real news stories, translated them into a more satirical flair like this one, allow people to click through to more examples of that, and then got engagement with their representative, and then encouraged people to register to vote right here. You can affect that thing that you hate right now. Slowly, and depending on your gerrymandered district, but there's an expression available other than down. But I don't always run away from the sad stuff either.
I hope you got .gov for that too.
We didn't. Shoot.
Somebody's got it.
Yeah.
Another question from the crowd. Oh, come on. I think they're getting anxious for their cocktails.
How is it living in Brooklyn? Yeah.
I was just in Brooklyn. It's changed so much.
Yeah, it's
it's not the Brooklyn it was even 3 or 4
10 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago. Yeah, I grew up in D.C., and I grew up in a neighborhood called Columbia Heights, which is not the neighborhood I grew up in at all. There are white people from Iowa living in my old house and their coffee shops. There's all the thing that's happening to urban America. A lot of it's good, some of it's problematic, and in terms of pricing, what happens to people who get displaced. So Brooklyn has a lot of that going on, has a ton of, I mean, it's a very humble part of America, I think, Brooklyn. You don't hear much from it. So I think there could be more pride in Brooklyn, more people screaming it for no reason.
Does that shape some of your daily living?
I mean, being in New York has shaped a ton of my living, because I bike everywhere, because you bump into people. It's a high intersection town. It's like Twitter, where you can bump into another idea pretty easily. There's not a lot of space between people in Brooklyn, because we live on top of each other, and it's disgusting. The smells also definitely stand out. Random pools of liquid trash piled on the street, like we haven't had innovation in garbage collection in 50 years. That also gets to me, yeah.
Okay, I've got another question for you.
Oh, there's
Oh, great.
Yes.
Actually, we have one right over here to the side.
Oh,
Yay.
just
I'll
for
be
the
right
record,
back
I
over
was
to
with
you.
you, but I was
But the
over
mic is
with
over here, so I'll hand it off.
you. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Are you really, though?
We'll get to you, MJ.
I didn't think so. I think you were saying that.
My question was, have you seen on Facebook that they're telling when things are satire?
Right.
And how do you feel about that?
Right.
I'm really upset about it.
So the question that I see that Facebook is tagging things that are satirical with the very artistic tag of satire. And what do I think about that? I think that is stupid shit. I think it is the same, it's the same instinct that says you got to talk down to your audience instead of talking up to them. It's condescending. It assumes that we're dummity-dum-dums. And even if we are, on average, dumber than we like to believe, we have the capacity to be smarter than we've ever been. And so I prefer a service that played to my intelligence rather than reinforced my ignorance. Philosophically, I'm opposed to it. As a comedian, I'm frustrated by it. And that's that. I think it's stupid. Here's the real thing. I think there's something to the surprise of discovering a joke you weren't expecting. Like in that Google Voice example, right? You didn't see that coming. That is an ancient humorous device, right? The misdirection. And for Facebook to basically steal that from people, they're taking potential joy from people. Facebook is stealing our joy. You can quote me on that. Facebook is stealing our
That's
joy.
going
I'll
to
say
get
it again.
tweeted, you
slowly.
realize that.
Facebook
That
is stealing
a
our
title
joy.
tweet in the back. Is that you, MJ?
Yes, it's me. Hi.
MJ Wessner, content manager for social media
We're clapping.
today.
Nobody else got a clap like that. Sorry.
I think humor can be really risky, and I know that for the brands here, they're probably really nervous about using it on their own platforms or what have you. Have you ever had a joke go awry? And
Never. I'm perfect.
Well, for those of us who aren't perfect, if a joke does go awry, how do you think? What's the best way to handle that?
Yeah. One is to literally get in front of it and have people who might represent the types of people that this is going to be put in front of, just have a room that's diverse in some ways that can help check your own ear and your gut. American Apparel just launched this thing, a sweatshirt, a Kent State athletic sweatshirt, if you haven't heard this aberrant news, that was like blood-stained. That was the pattern that it was bought with.
It was a fan.
The school that had the National Guard literally kill students. American Apparel was like, we want to monetize that in the most literal and grotesque way. Somebody wasn't in the room when that happened, right? And so like, are certain points of view represented in the room? Doesn't even have to be a full-time staff thing. It just has to be a conscious effort to get out of your own head.
It takes a village to
try to
make a
think a
joke.
little differently, or at least a bodega.
Yeah.
So there's that. And in terms of the recovery, I have had a moment. You know, I specifically on a Facebook, Twitter type of moment when Paula Dean was diagnosed with diabetes, and I took an opportunity to make, a really highly educated, highbrow joke about, her eating and food promotion habits and the consequences of this diagnosis. And I got rained upon with the fury of the various types of diabetes community correcting me, saying this is not even related, this is mean, you're doing this. And first of all, I just stopped for a minute. I didn't immediately defend myself and prove how right I was and how you just don't get it. People don't like to be told their opinions aren't valid. And that's a first potential misstep unless you really want to own that. And that's a part of your character, right? The Onion might say, go fuck yourself, and be oniony about it. Your brand may not want to do that. And then the second, in this case, what I ended up doing is I actually just read all the stuff people were sending, including the links, and I realized like I was wrong on the science, right? I was wrong. And so I issued an update. I didn't delete the tweet. I really don't believe in deleting things that are part of the record in almost every case, unless it's like a actively like life-damaging misstatement of fact or something like that. I just think the idea that, oh, this never happened, like somebody screen grabbed it, so why pretend? And then I wrote, on the Facebook side, and I linked on Twitter, like, here's my thought process, here's what happened, apologies to this crew, I'm still gonna try to make funny stuff, I'm gonna miss every once in a while, like, forgiveness? And I got invited here, like it didn't destroy my career or anything like that. But I think a level of humility, transparency, and honesty about it, as opposed to trying to hide it, is on the recovery side worth considering. And I'd add a third thing, and it goes back to the first point I made, which is like know yourself, know your character, know your headline. There is a great excitement about viral humor. Like, oh, we want something to go viral. Let's be funny and let's be edgy. And I think if you start there, you're doomed. You may get lucky and not be doomed yet. But if you start there and you don't do the personal work of like, what is our actual voice? Who are we? What do we value? And have that humor, that viral humor thing, emerge from the existing set of products and customer interactions, and then you're false, right? I think you're grabbing someone else's thunder and hoping it doesn't, strike you. That's lightning. I mixed thunder and lightning in that story there. So yeah, just be careful. I don't think everybody actually has to tell a joke. I think everybody has to be real and be more human. I think humor is a great angle into that. It's not the only one. Yeah.
Do you want to take one more question? Or
Yeah,
you're going to be upstairs.
I'd love to take one more
Baratunde's
question.
going to be upstairs. You want
We
to
have
talk
one
to him
more
there?
right here.
One more question.
Back to the troublemaking table where we started.
Right. But they danced, remember?
That's right. No, this was give it up for this table. No hesitation. Jump right into the mix.
You mentioned earlier the buzzworthy feed.
Yeah,
type,
that was great. Way
type
to
of
smash
content.
that together.
I'm curious, what do you think the lifespan is of that kind of content that we're
Yeah.
seeing all over the place today?
Thanks for asking. I am uncertain how the part of me that I talked to earlier, that intelligence-seeking, play up, not down part, says this is a bad. It certainly is explainable as content. We're flooded with content. Our attention spans shrink. We have more moments to engage in stuff that were not previously capable of getting us to click on things. Got to shrink. We need people more aggressively yanking at our attention. Okay, turn an article into a listicle. Buzzworthy is a logical step in the process of like how media adjusts. I suspect that we will not be so broadly embracing the listicle or the sort of interrogative headline 5 years from now. I think it's a wave. I think it's a big wave. I think, but it feels to me, just from like a joke spotting, like that feels a little hacky. How long can we play this same note over and over again? And certainly a subset will backlash against it automatically. It's like, it's the unplug movement, right? It's like it's the digital Sabbath. It's camp unplugged and things like that, camp grounded. So I think a bit of that is going to affect us. We're like, oh, I like talking to you face to face. I actually like reading a whole article that might be like 600 words, and I'm big enough to do it, right? And so I think the curation and the acknowledgement that as we are so quickly adjusting to a world with so much in it, it's natural for us to overreact and over-respond and overindulge in that. And then we rein it in. Or our technology helps us rein it in. And it's not just be disciplined, it's also like machines help manage the machines. And Facebook's trying it. They're actually trying on the other side of stealing our joy. Like they're trying with the news feed to say, like, if we unleashed everything that this user signed up to receive, they would hate themselves, right? And us. So let's not do that. They have an imperfect algorithm, but they are trying. I give them credit for the attempt. I think the idea that we need our news spoon-fed forever doesn't quite sit with me as true. Some new thing will emerge, and we'll look back at this as like, oh, that moment when like push networks were all the rage.
Right. I'm glad it's a fad. Okay, let's give it up for Baratunde.
Thank you.